Good afternoon. They are trainable. I thought you guys said they weren't. Welcome to this session this afternoon. We have a real treat for you. Terry May from MESA Products is here. He's the 2006 Baldrige Award winner for small business. He's going to speak to you about his company and his secret to success or other stories. So he talked this morning at breakfast with a lot of business people there. Very entertaining, very interesting speaker with a fantastic story about how to start, grow a small business and some of the pitfalls related to it. So we're very fortunate and very happy to have him
here. Good afternoon. Sound okay? All right, great. I really don't know what your expectations are. I've got a business, and we've got some pretty interesting stories. At least to me, they're interesting, and hopefully they may be to you as well. When I was asked to come here and speak, I wasn't exactly sure what I was getting myself into in terms of the audience and what your interests were. So I want to talk about what I'm interested in, which is my small business and some of the things we've done over the course of what seems in retrospect to be a pretty long time. Started a business 30 years ago, and it was one of those things where I thought I always wanted to be in business. Had these dreams of having your own, and I think a lot of people have those same dreams, and not knowing exactly what direction to go. The last 30 years have been just wonderful in hindsight. Now, when you're right in the middle of some of these events that occur in the course of growing business, it doesn't seem quite so wonderful. But I'm just going to kind of ramble along and tell you how we evolved as a small business and where we've arrived at, and if I have any advice to give someone, then take it for what it's worth. By the way, they're not paying me anything, so it might not be worth all that much. Our small business. I think it's relevant to note that we received the Baldrige Award in 2006, 2 years ago. Well, Monfort School of Business received the Baldrige Award in 2004, 2 years before we did. And, the Baldrige Award, I'll talk a little bit about our experience and what that process is all about. If you've been in some of the business classes, you may have a little bit of a background on it. But I just want to share with you that Monfort winning the 2004 Baldrige Award is a huge deal. It's just incredible. You've got the opportunity to be attending a college that is nationally and even world recognized for performance excellence. And there's not many organizations, much less learning institutions, that have that level of recognition. So that says a lot about the leadership of this school and the direction and the strategy and vision of the leaders of this school. And so I commend John and Lynn and all the other Tim and all the other people that are involved with Monfort and their focus on performance excellence. We are probably not the typical Baldrige poster child, the experience. And I think that what I've seen is that everybody has a unique story, and they're all a little bit different. Some are small, some are big, some are nonprofit, some are profit, some are learning institutions, medical. I mean, it's a pretty wide range of organizations that have received the Baldrige Award in recognition, and every one's just a little bit different. There's a common trait that connects all of the organizations, and that's that trait to improve, to get better, to achieve a high level of performance excellence, and to routinely and continually improve performance. Measured in many, many different ways. When I look at Monfort, when I look at our company, it's, at first glance, it's hard to draw the comparisons between those radically different organizations, but the Baldrige process allows you to do that. And any organization, any size, any industry can improve. And so that's the kind of trick, that improvement. And, it can get kind of messy because you make mistakes as an organization. Obviously, individually you make mistakes, and as an organization you make mistakes. I told the story this morning, so Greg might, for anybody that heard it already, but we were asked as a Baldrige recipient early in 2007, we were for the 2006 award year. I got an invitation to go to Albuquerque to speak to Quality in Mexico, which is the state conference in Mexico that addresses the Baldrige. And so the state awards, and then you advance to the national award. And so I'm talking to a group, and they have a big conference. There was like 500 people. And it was a big deal. And it was my first speaking engagement. I was very nervous about it. Because this is not what I do. I mean, I run a business. I don't come out and talk to people. So I was nervous about it. I spent a lot of time preparing for it. And from Tulsa, to get to Albuquerque, there weren't any direct flights. So we took a plane to Houston and then take a connection to Albuquerque. And I had to be there at a certain time. And again, I'm pretty excited about it. I've been on this flight to Houston. It's an early morning flight to Houston 100 times because I go to Houston for business. And I get to the airport and I don't even slow down as I get onto the plane. Everything has just happened on perfect timing. And I walk onto this regional jet, 30 passenger, completely full except for my seat in 4A. And so I sit down and I open my newspaper. And I'm still thinking and kind of trying not to have a conversation with anybody because I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to think. And I immerse myself, and the plane takes off. We're going to Houston and then on to Albuquerque. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, I realized, because it was a sunny day, I realized that the plane's not going in the right direction. It's going anywhere but the direction we needed to go. And I'm thinking, this can't be good. And I've been on this plane before, and after about 10 minutes, the guy sitting next to me, I just kind of looked over and said, "Where's this plane going?" And he looked at me like, that's kind of a dumb question to ask, isn't it? I mean, you're on a plane. And he said, we're going to Newark, New Jersey. And I'm thinking to myself, this day that is not starting off the way it's supposed to start off. I had a plan. I had plotted it all out. I was prepared. And yet my plan, my journey, took a wrong turn. Now in hindsight, there were all kinds of signs, all kinds of signals. I just wasn't listening. I wasn't aware. Now I went up in Newark and then wound up going to Houston and then wound up going to Albuquerque, and I arrived after I was supposed to speak. And do you think there's a lesson there somewhere? And by the way, I've heard every single lesson that you could ever possibly think of that thing. Because I have a lot of friends that remind me of those. But the lesson is that, you're going to make those mistakes. You're going to take those turns. You're going to go in the wrong direction. You've got to recover from those. You've got to adjust from those. And over 30 years of business, I can tell you that we, as an organization, make every mistake you can make short of a fatal mistake. And we've recovered from those mistakes. We've learned from those mistakes. But it is a journey. There is no question about it. A little bit about my company. Cathodic protection. Okay, it's not a religious event or experience. It is an electrochemical process for protecting steel. Think back to your high school chemistry, and you can start remembering some of the things. Cathodic protection is a technology involving the flow of electrical current to prevent corrosion on a structure. And that's important on some pretty critical structures. So underground natural gas pipelines coming through your town, connected into your houses, your buildings, providing natural gas. You don't want those to leak. Right? There's some pretty catastrophic possibilities if you have leaking gas. You know, and every time that happens, there's some pretty high-profile news stories about it. But cathodic protection is what we do to prevent those pipelines from corroding. And whether it's natural gas or crude oil or refined petroleum products or gasoline that's in a storage tank at the convenience store, all of those use cathodic protection. It's an old technology, it's nothing new, and it is a regulated safety requirement that exists for the operators of the pipelines and the wells and the underground tanks. So it's a relatively small industry. In the U.S., I estimate it's somewhere around $200 to $250 million total. So compared to some markets, it's pretty small. It is such a small market that we are number 2 in our market. The biggest one is around $85 million in annual revenue, and we are now about $36 million in annual revenue, and we're number 2 in the United States in that particular market. We started in 1979 as a one-person company. I was an engineer, worked for a pipeline company, got some experience, and because of a series of events, found myself having the opportunity to start a business in 1979. I was 27 years old at that time, and at 27 years old, you pretty much know everything there is to know. So I thought it was a kind of a no-brainer to go into business and start up. I've matured over those years and realized now that that was a bad decision to make. In terms of, I mean, if you laid it all together and tried to come up with, you know, what would be the best chance of success for an organization in building an organization, I did everything wrong. But I am extremely lucky. And luck and timing are really underrated in terms of survival and sustainability of organizations. I think in any successful organization, long-term successful organization, there are lots and lots of stories of luck and timing and circumstances that we will see. Now, as I've come to learn, being lucky has a lot to do with being prepared. And I had a quote: luck is the intersection of opportunity and preparation. Think about that a moment. When you think about it, opportunities come by every single day. For all of you. Being prepared, well, first of all, identifying the opportunities and then being prepared to take advantage of them, that's another story. And the more prepared you are, generally the luckier you get. And so I'm very blessed, and through 30 years, we've been able to grow from that one person to right around 100 people in our company. We've got 5 different office locations, 36 million in revenue, and we've got wonderful, great people working for us. I've got the oldest, besides me, the oldest tenure is 28 years. I got a number of people over 25 years, and at least 10 people over 20 years of tenure, which is pretty remarkable for a small business to be able to hang with a company that's growing from nothing to that size and keep those people there for long periods of time. And starting a business, that survival thing, it really, that's what it is. It's survival. It's day to day, making payroll. You know, there's a lot of upsides to having your own business. There are some downsides as well. And every 2 weeks, when you're first starting out, the downside is having to make payroll. And I'll tell you, it's, you know, the thought of strategic planning, I was in the strategic management class earlier, the thought of strategic management was the farthest thing from my mind back then. I mean, you know, I'm doing planning and you know, plans in my head, and like, you know, what I'm thinking about is how the heck are we going to make payroll next next week, or how the heck are we going to get buy materials for that job that we've got to do next week, so that we can get the invoice out in like 30 or 45 days before the customer pays us, and scheduling all that stuff. I mean, it's literally day to day. There is no time to think long term. Long term thinking in that kind of environment is tomorrow. And there are many companies that don't make it out of that. You know, the survival rate of new businesses, I mean, you can see that published in different forms. And I don't even know what it is, but you know, long term, it's not high. Because companies just can't survive that. Organizations just don't make it past that. And even the ones that do, on a longer term, it might take a long time. You know, we started a business. I get back to this, you know, if you had to kind of pick the ideal business and product, and we picked a market that was basically not growing. Mature market. We picked a product and a service that was a commodity. We had what everybody else had. We picked, or we didn't pick, I mean, we were faced with a situation where we had no capital. I mean, if you're going to think about starting a business and what the increasing your chances for success, it would be exactly the opposite of what happened to us. You know, our little motto was, we'll take any job, anywhere, anytime, for any price. And that's what I think companies do when they're starting out. I think they have a plan, but the plan is all about today. You know, as we grew and matured and understood things a little bit, we were able to move past that and start developing what are the beginnings of maybe a longer-term plan. We identified three things that we thought are important, we think are important. We didn't make them up. I mean, they're out there. You can read books. If you want to say it the appropriate ways, quality, service, and price. Those three attributes, quality, service, and price. We call it better, faster, cheaper. Successful organizations, when you analyze them, you can generally bring it back to those three attributes. And the successful ones are the ones that are able to pick and execute two out of the three. It's hard to find organizations that can do all three very well. So, better, faster, cheaper. We pick better and faster. And we're about 7 or 8 years into our evolution. It took us 7 years to do that. And that means 7 years of growing, but not making any money. We said, you know, we're going to work this hard. We're going to, you know, work really hard through the course of the year, and at the end of the year, we don't make any money. Why are we doing that? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So we said, we're not going to give this stuff away anymore. Now, we might go out of business by making this decision, but we're going to focus our energy on being better and faster. We're going to raise our prices. And we did that overnight. I mean, it was kind of an interesting deal. One day, we sat down in a meeting. I talked about the management team of my company, which was only 3 of us at that point. We sat down and said, from this day forward, we're going to raise our prices to a minimum profit margin of 15%. Gross profit margin. So, unfortunately, we didn't know what gross profit margin even meant. I mean, when you're talking about people that are an engineer, you know, I mean, we were a group of people that didn't really understand how to run businesses or manage businesses, so we're learning all of this as we go. But we realized that 7% margin, gross margin, isn't really enough to cover our costs. That's why we've been losing money the last 2 years. You know, quick studies. We made this decision from that day forward, nothing less than 15% gross margin. We didn't lose a single customer, we didn't lose a single order, and we started making money. Brilliant. From that point, we kind of evolved that, maybe to a little bit higher level of sophistication. You know what? The better and faster have never really left our strategic plan. That's what we do. We're the quality leader in our industry, and we're the service leader in our industry, and that's the way we go in our business. And you find those words today on our formal strategic plan. Nowhere will you find cheaper. And in fact, what we strive, what we say is we try to be competitive. But as we grew through these years, let me see, I'm trying to remember what the next slide is. As we grew through these years, we added people, we added staff, we added complexity, and it became an organization that I couldn't personally supervise and manage all the employees. Started handing off some of those responsibilities. And in the course of handing off those responsibilities, that's called delegation. You know, my control systems initially were me. I mean, that was my control system. When you start delegating, you need to have developed some different control systems, because me can't be around watching everybody. So the challenge is in that delegation process, identifying what those control processes are, training, developing people, and I'll tell you what, that's frustrating. We went through a period of time where, as we grew, our ability to screw up increased almost exponentially. We were really very customer focused, and from day one have been very customer focused. But we managed to create most of the problems that we wound up solving. And it was a scale thing, and it had to do with, call it growing pains. But the reality is we didn't have any processes. It was all ad hoc management, and as delegation occurred, people just do things different ways. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, but there's no consistency, in the delivery. It's all different, and it depends very much on individual effort as opposed to processes. I became, as the head guy, I became very frustrated with that. Why can't we learn as an organization? What was it that was preventing us from learning from our mistakes and not making those same mistakes over again? Again, we're totally self-taught from a business perspective. And I do a lot of my learning from reading. And I started reading, and this is in the early 90s, started reading about something called quality. All right, and, use the word quality. It's got maybe a little different meaning to different people, but when I'm talking about quality related to organizations, I read a book about Deming. Crosby had a couple of books out there. It was all kind of coming at a point in time in history where the United States was getting their ass kicked by Japan in terms of manufacturing. And this whole quality revolution kind of came out, and that's the origins of the Baldrige program back in 1988. So I started reading this stuff, and I said, this is it, quality. It's all about delivering, identifying the product that the customer wants, making sure that it met the customer's needs, and then creating delivery systems that were consistent. And that's the solution to all of these issues that I had. So I did some research and went to a couple of conferences, got inspired by a couple of local role models, and the net result of that is what I call that's kind of a cliche, but our quality journey. Again, at the beginning, we didn't even know what quality was. But 1993 was kind of the beginnings of our quality journey. And I'm going to walk you through some of the events over the next few years that were pretty, for us, life-changing. Think about some of this is like, first of all, to find out that there was a world out there of people that share the same perspective, opinions about customer service and employee satisfaction. It's almost like a religious experience. And I find myself going to some of these presentations at the quality conferences, and it's like you're in a room of converts, and they're hearing what you say. it is a life-changing thing, and whether it's Baldrige or whether it's TQM or whether it's anything, I can tell you personally, I used to be a pretty patient person. I could go into a McDonald's and I could suffer through bad service, get my hamburger and leave without really thinking too much about it. I can't do that anymore. I walk in and I have an expectation of what the service is going to be, and if my expectation is not met, I leave. My family hates it. They get so embarrassed of me, or they did when their kids were growing up, because that was right in my midlife crisis, and my children were, in grade school, middle school, and I would just get them all up from a restaurant and we would leave, because I wouldn't tolerate service like that. I'm paying for it. I expect it. There's no reason why it shouldn't be delivered. It's life-changing. So let me walk you through our journey. 1993. I had learned so much from reading on TQ and total quality management, the Deming Way, 14 points. It's the magic recipe. It's the solution to my problems. I created a TQM program. There's only like 20 people in the company, 25 people. I made everybody go through training. We got a local community college, and we did SQC. I mean, it's like my people thought I had gone nuts. I mean, they were doing things that they couldn't understand why, what the value was. But I was convinced that the answer. That I had steering teams, committees. I had everybody in projects involved in it. And I was so proud of myself, I handed it off to him and said, here's TQM, this is what we're going to do. In retrospect, I call it TQM1. The reason I call it TQM1 is because 6 months later, you walk through our plants, our offices, and there's absolutely no evidence of any change or any existence of a, quote, quality program. We're doing exactly the same thing we were doing 6 months earlier. We haven't had a meeting in 3 months. Everybody forgot who the leaders of the committees were. It's like, holy, what's happening here? I did my part, why can't they do their part? That's very frustrating as a leader. I got tied up on some other more important things in 1993, 1994, so I got distracted as the leader. I got distracted and I said, we got some other things, we'll put that on the shelf for now. Doesn't have the priority. I didn't use those words, but I think by my actions, the message came through loud and clear that it wasn't all that important. 1995, I'm going through my phases again, and that's a lot of things that have happened in my company are based on periods of personal dissatisfaction. 1995, I'm going through one of those again. And I said, I've read a little bit more about TQM. I know how we screwed up. We made it too complex. It was too cumbersome. We need to right-size this and get it down to where it's a program that people can relate to. It's easy to follow. And so we did TQM2. Solved all the problems. Handed it off, just like I did before. And then I went back to my jobs. 6 months later, it's exactly the same effect. No impact on our organization. You couldn't identify any change as a result of it. There were still a few posters hanging on the walls. That was about it. Okay, now, I'm starting to understand that maybe it wasn't them. I'm fairly stubborn, a little hard-headed sometimes, but I'm starting to come through. Maybe it wasn't the TQM program, maybe it was something else. There's something else missing. I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. Started thinking maybe it had something to do with me. Put it on the shelf. 2 years later, do strategic planning. Now, again, I said earlier, every organization has a plan. Every business owner has a plan. Maybe it's not very formalized. Maybe it's not documented. Maybe it's just up in the air. But there's a plan, believe me. This was the first formal strategic planning process that we went through. This was in 1997. So it's like 18 years after we've been in business. Again, you've got to go back and say, I'm going to create a plan to grow a business from nothing to whatever. You would probably put strategic planning on a lot more at the front end than at the back end. We were very successful with strategic planning in 1997. The process we used then looks very much like the process we use now. And it's a very messy process, but it was our first real organizational success in what I call change. And the reason I call it that much of a success is because it has been the starting point for every significant event that's occurred since it, including Baldrige. It has led to everything else we've done. And the first thing that happened was that we're up there and we're saying we're the quality leader in our industry. How do you measure quality? How do you demonstrate quality? How do you show your customers? Well, we came up with this bright idea. We're going to ISO 9002 certified. ISO 9000 is an internationally recognized set of quality standards. Back then, it has evolved and undergone cycles of improvement, but back then, basically, it's all about consistency, reducing variation. Very document, procedure-based. And in order to become ISO certified for us, we went from an environment where we had no written processes. Think about that. No written processes. To an environment where all of our key processes were documented. We did that in about a year and a half. That was the first, what I call organizational change, that the word discipline kind of came out of. It forced us to have a level of it. It took us from just saying we're the quality leader, because words are cheap and everybody says, I don't care any organization you go to, look on their website, I bet somewhere you can find quality and service on that organization's website. Everybody does it. But ISO 9002 for us was the first legitimate step towards demonstrating that and validating, yeah, it's not just words here. And the organizational change that occurred as a result of the discipline we had to have to become ISO certified has led to some pretty significant events since then. But it was that first success. And from there, we go through a series of lean, we use lean improvement methodology in business. But we had all these things kind of lined up. And we were starting to feel pretty good about this, and on like a 2-year basis, we were adding something new. From strategic planning, we added a customer satisfaction survey process. From strategic planning, we added an employee satisfaction survey process. And so, we're putting pieces in place, not really having any idea what we're doing. Just thinking this would be a good idea. That strategic planning process led us to these. Well, in 2002, I'm going through one of those phases. My employees can kind of sense, when I'm going through these issues, these emotional, personal issues. I guess they say they can read me like a book, but I become pretty introspective. I'll close my door. But they know when I'm going through these cycles, and they tend to happen on 2-year intervals. And I was going through one in 2002, and I just happened by chance to come across a Baldrige criteria booklet. I don't know if you've ever seen a criteria booklet, but it's about, it's a booklet. It's like 30 or 40 pages long, and inside there is the Baldrige criteria. So I started just kind of scanning through this thing, landed on my desk, and I'd heard about it before, but I didn't know anything about it. And I found that the criteria is broken down into 7 categories, and I'm reading through categories 1, 2, 3, and it's like, I get partway through this, oh my gosh, we're doing all of this stuff. I've never seen it quite packaged like this before. Now, I can go to business school, I'm an engineer, but I like data, and I like analysis of data and all that stuff, and all of a sudden I'm seeing all these pieces, the strategic planning, the customer focus, the work, like I say, all kind of packaged really neatly in this Baldrige process. I said, you know, this is going to be, this is good, I like this. Again, I'm a reader, I like reading business books, and I read Balanced Scorecard, got a great book, Balanced Scorecard by Calif. And this is all about, you know, taking the different pieces of your business and making sure you don't focus too much on one. It's not just the financial piece, it's the HR piece, it's the customer piece. You know, have major impact. You know, I mean, I've read lots of these books, and you know, they're all parts of the puzzle for us. But Baldrige put their arms around it and pulled it all together for me. We were doing strategic planning. We were doing, you know, customer focus. We were doing employee satisfaction. We were very workforce, people-oriented. Process management with lean and ISO. And I said, God, we're gonna. And I found out there was an application process. Now, I'll talk later about this, but my perception was that we were so far advanced that we could submit an application and receive a Baldrige Award in 2002. You'll see by the slide that they didn't quite happen that way. We went through 5 applications. We started applying for both the Oklahoma Quality Award and the Baldrige Award at the same time. And we started having teams of people come in on site visits, which is part of the process as you advance through the process. And so we were having, you know, state people coming in and national people coming in. We went through a total of 7 site visits. And it was a pretty intense time in our organization. You know, I was going through these 2-year cycles, and my employees were putting up with that. Those 2-year cycles became constant for 5 years. Painful, because you've got people coming in, looking at what you're doing, and basically, you know, at least the first one was telling you how bad your organization is. I mean, that's the way you react to that. Well, that's certainly the way I reacted to it. With anger, I got mad. I know we're not that bad. Why are they saying those things about us? Okay, I personally matured over those 5 years in that application process to a point where they went from, those examiners went from being the adversary to being the friend. Because once a year, they were going to come in and help you. They were going to help you identify gaps in your organization, what you could work on to improve your organization. That's a maturity process, both personally for me and as an organization, because I don't care who you are, everybody's defensive when you have people kind of looking over your shoulder. But that process, which at first became, by God, we'll show you, to a process in which we're seeing dramatic improvements in our business results. And it takes about 3 years to see that. So you got to hang in there with it, but it's it was 5 years of dissatisfaction, pain in some situations, certainly discomfort. But at the end of that 5 years, we received recognition as a national Baldrige recipient. Great. You know, I get asked some questions about Baldrige. Not a lot of people know what it is. I know for us, it's a way to run a business. It wraps everything up very neatly in what we were already doing. And yeah, we didn't do it the right way. We had expectations that were totally unrealistic. We didn't have the right attitude about it. But yet, the value that we derive from it is incredible. I get asked 5 questions all the time about this. Why did you do this? What did you change? What were the challenges? How's that working out for you? And what would you do differently? And so I'll quickly try to kind of talk about each one of these. First of all, why Baldrige? Why was an organization do Baldrige? 1988 is when the Baldrige process began. There's been John, you may know the number, somewhere in the mid-60s to 70 recipients since 1988. Some multiple recipients. How come there aren't more? This is a national award. But if you look at the list of the companies that have done it, you'll recognize many of the names. And certainly they're recognized as world-class performers. First line of Jim Collins' book, good is the enemy of great. That's the very first sentence in the book that Jim Collins wrote, Good to Great. Good is the enemy of great. What does that mean? We were a good company before any of this started. By all measures, comparisons, we were a good company. Companies that are good, what's the motivation for them to change? And what drives that? There's a level of, we're good, so we're satisfied with that. Not many companies advance beyond that. But you know what? This is a proven, comprehensive business model. I didn't make it up. Monfort didn't make it up. I mean, it's out there. And it's proven. You can look at the business results of the recipients, or even the organizations that have never received an award that have applied the principles of it. For me, it's about enhancing value in my organization. I'm the sole stockholder. My wife and I are sole stockholders of my company. I want that to be worth as much as it can possibly be worth. And I'm using Baldrige to increase the value. There's a personal aspect for me. I mean, we do a lot of experimentation, and you know, I've got this personality trait. That first feedback report that I received, frankly, just made me mad. I was angry. I was defensive. And initially, us moving forward in applying for the Baldrige Award was a lot of, we'll show you. But as I matured, not quickly. It took several years. And some people might say it hadn't happened yet, but 3 years we started seeing some very dramatic results. So maybe a better question than, you know, why'd you do Baldrige is, why wouldn't you do Baldrige? Well, there's three very good reasons. If you want instant results, if you need instant gratification, don't do it. Because it is a long-term improvement process. If you're in a crisis situation in an organization and you need a turnaround, do not do it. Second reason not to do it is leadership not committed. TQ in 1 and TQ in 2 both fail. It's the right thing to do, but both fail. Why is it? Me? Leadership commitment. I wasn't committed. I wasn't personally involved. I wanted to hand it off. I wanted to delegate. You can't delegate leadership. The last reason is it's really hard. I don't care what analogy you use, and you can use a bunch of them, but it is just, change is a painful process at times, and it's hard. So what did we change? I'll just say everything but nothing. Our organization looked much the same after Baldrige as it did before Baldrige. But if you kind of delve down inside the organization, you find out that we embedded processes, we implemented training programs, we developed people, we did market studies of our customers and potential markets. Everything was just, after Baldrige, was just at so much more depth than we had before. We had a shell before, and after Baldrige, we had maturity, we had a very rich system. Discipline. That's probably a major change. I told you with ISO 9002, that was our first experience in understanding what organizational discipline was about, and Baldrige took that several levels higher. Organizational discipline. Sharing information. Another book that kind of hit home with me, Open Book Management. And there's a bunch of books on that subject, but Open Book Management. I went from a position where I couldn't really trust my employees to know what the sales volumes were, to know what the profit levels were. I just couldn't trust them with it. Because for God's sake, what are they going to do with that information? They want to share that with somebody they shouldn't share it with, and that's going to come back to haunt me. I mean, I went from that perspective to one where we share everything. I'll share it with my competitors. I promise you, if my competitor called me and started asking me questions about what our sales levels were, what our profit, I'd tell them, because I don't really care if they know. It's not what the information is, it's what you do with the information, and frankly, they can't do anything with it. I realize that if I'm going to expect employees to understand what the company vision and strategy, the direction of the company is, they needed to have data, they needed to have information, they needed to know whether we were profitable or not profitable. So we share everything. I mean, we report out on a monthly basis, we post it on the walls. Because they need information in order to make decisions. And I expect them to make decisions. You know, that transition from 10 people to 15 people to 25 people to 40 to 50, I mean, the organizational levels that you have to build in order to operate and manage that kind of deal requires, if you're going to do it efficiently, prevents me from making all the decisions. Well, we drive decision making down to the lowest possible level, whether it's on the plant floor, whether it's out on the construction site. We want decisions to be made at the lowest possible level. And that's a cultural thing in an organization that takes a while. Biggest challenge, you know, Baldrige. I mean, that's what I typically kind of come back to talk about, but, you know, you could use anything. Any organizational change, an improvement initiative, anything. It doesn't matter what it is. What's the biggest challenge? It's just change. You know, the steps you go through, the stages you go through in a change situation. You know, I don't know, what's the book? The only thing that's constant about change is change or something like that. It's like, hey, what kind of environment do we live in these days? Is today seem like it did in September or August? Tell you what, from a business standpoint, we're in a different world today than we were last August. Well, look at the meltdown that's occurred. My world, my business world, this is totally different than what I expected to happen. And our organizations have to be able to adjust to that. Is there ever going to be a point where change isn't part of our, I mean, it's just here. And the stages you go through a change, and I know this improvement initiative that we embarked upon, this quality journey, you know, the first one is understanding what you're talking about. What is this thing? Quality, performance excellence, improvement. And that takes a little bit of time, and then the next one's acceptance, and that can be as easy as my boss says, we're going to do this, so we're going to do this. That's acceptance. You may not agree with it, but you say, okay, you're the boss. That's what we're going to do. Those are actually two pretty quick deals. And they, you know, it might kind of in reverse order. It could be acceptance and then understanding. That happens pretty quickly, you know, in a change situation. The next one, that takes a little bit longer, buy-in. Buy-in is when that level of understanding and acceptance reaches a point where you say, it's that aha moment where you say, I get it. Now I understand. That's right. I agree with that. That's buy-in. The last stage is commitment. That's where you go from all the way through the buying and finally say, I'm going to jump into this thing. I'm going to get personally engaged in this. And it requires that of everybody in the organization if they're going to survive in the organization. From a marketing standpoint, it's the kind of concept of you've got the early adopters and then the majority, and then you've always got the laggards on the end deal with a new product or promotion or something like that. What is that majority that you want to get in, and the ones on the back end, maybe sooner or later they got to get kicked off. That's their choice. And it's not always pleasant. But if the train is moving, and it's moving in a certain direction, and somebody's out there trying to hold it back, sooner or later you might have to cut the ties. When we started this journey, we had a management team that was 6 people. Many of them had worked a long time for me. But we were doing something we had never done before. Literally, it was changing our organization, and there was resistance. And there always is. Doesn't matter what it is. As you go through the stage, it took 5 years for these 6 direct reports. It took 5 years to get them all to that final stage of commitment. And it came very close, and I'm a patient guy, but I came very close at the end with one. Now, he finally came on board. But you got to be patient about that, and sooner or later, you're not always successful. To me, that's the most difficult thing about this. And for us, if you look at the small organization, what is the child limited money, time, and experts, and all that stuff. Those are minimal compared to that first part. Well, so what does this recognition mean to you? Well, my people are proud. We're proud to have received the Baldrige Award. It's a validation of the things that we say to our customers, and even the things we say to ourselves. And they've said some very nice things to me after the fact. Sometimes I read quotes from what they said. It's personal messages, but very, very nice things about their learning, their development, their growth through personal growth through our organizational change. But you know what? That recognition thing, that's pretty fleeting. That doesn't last very long. We're 2 years out from receiving the Baldrige Award, and some kind of old news now. The first year you talk a lot. You go and get invited to a lot of places. The second year kind of tails off, and in the third and fourth year, it's like just a couple. And that's okay, because that's not what it's about. It's nice, but that really isn't what it's about. What it's really about is the business results that come out of it. And here's a little laundry list of some of the improvements we made in business results over the course of the 5 years of Republic. Now, keep in mind that Baldrige, that 5 years of Baldrige, which is on the back end of 5 years before that, we were doing a lot of stuff already. So you could almost argue that it's a 10-year process for us. Our revenue increased 100% in the past 5 years, which means a 20% growth rate. Cost of quality reduced to 0.5% or 1% of revenue. Our on-time shipping rate, 93, I think this is 97.5, it's actually 98% right now. Customer retention increased, customer satisfaction, highest level in the industry, safety, employee satisfaction. There are so many metrics that can validate the improvement in performance by MESA over the last 5 years that I don't think you can argue that what we did resulted in these outcomes. And the value of that, I can measure the value of my business, net worth, retained earnings, all kinds of metrics there, but the value is so much deeper than that. You get into the personal satisfaction of employees, what they have learned, we put more money into training than, I mean, we spend on an annual basis, if the national average is somewhere around $600 per employee, and that is $600 to $700 is the national average. In 2008, we spent $2,000 per employee average on training. Now, why do we do that? That's a lot of money. I have 100 employees, so do the math on that. See how much money we spent on training last year. That came out of our Baldrige journey, our quality journey, our strategic planning process, identified that people are going to be the key to our future sustainability and success. So we better figure out a way to invest in them and to train them, to give them better tools. Is it worth the investment? I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was worth the investment. Am I worried about losing a few employees? Yeah. That's okay. I'm willing to take the risk. I would never have made the financial decision like that had it not been driven through a systematic approach and evaluation of the needs, the business needs, and the future business needs, and the threats, the weaknesses of our organization. It's all coming out of the process. You know, the lessons learned. This is kind of an important thing when you after the fact is we experiment a lot. I mean, that's our history. That's our nature. We try things, and if they don't work, we'll throw them away and try something else. If we find something works, then we'll try to make it better. We go through that. What I would do differently, in retrospect, is I get some outside experts much earlier in the process. You know, early on it was, we'll show you. We had to learn a lot of hard lessons that we could have looked at other people and gotten solutions to those hard lessons much easier than we went through. I certainly had more realistic expectations. The thought that we were going to receive a Baldrige Award in 2002 because I wrote such a great application is so unrealistic, it sets you up for failure. If that is your expectation, then you are going to fail. Setting yourself up for failure isn't the right way to do it. So understand what it is and have some realistic expectations. Get directly involved in the process. Again, as a leader, I couldn't delegate this. I had to be personally involved. I had to know the Baldrige process. I got involved as an examiner, state examiner, a national examiner. You got to get involved in the process. Yeah, there's one, don't call it Baldrige. That's really intended for a Baldrige audience. But the thing is, in our organization, by the year 2005, if that word came up in a conversation, there was an immediate negative reaction by anybody that heard the word. Immediate. You just see it on their face. Because it implies that you're taking something and adding it on to their existing responsibility. It's something extra that you're piling on. And what we should have done was try to embed in early on is that this isn't something extra. This is your job. Understanding who your customers are, determining what it is your customers want, and then delivering. That is your job. I don't care if they're internal customers or external customers. So getting rid of the word Baldrige would have helped us in kind of going beyond that. This is something extra to this is your job. Every day, this is your job. You know, in the 5 years that we participated in the process and finally received the award, we've gone from being a good organization, and I'm not going to use the word great organization, but certainly we're a world-class organization. The last feedback report I got the year we received the award, there were 50 items called OFIs, Opportunities for Improvement, listed on the winning application. I'm so excited about those 50 opportunities they identified because we still have a long way to go to improve. Just because we received an award doesn't stop us from getting and improving to a much better organization. Again, I'm talking to a Baldrige crowd. You know, there's 3 secrets to getting a Baldrige award. And I'm going to share those 3 secrets with you, but these are the same things that you set any target, any goal. They're the same things they apply. And they're so basically simple that I don't want to share them. They're not really secrets we're talking about. First one is stop talking, start. I mean, you can talk about losing weight, you can talk about not smoking anymore, you can talk about all these personal improvement things, you can talk about changing your organization, you can talk about starting a company, you can start about improving your department, you can talk about that forever, but sooner or later you have to start. Second secret. Steal. We started off thinking that we needed to invent everything. And as we got involved in the Baldrige process, we realized that other people and other organizations had already invented most of what we needed within our organization. All we had to do was look to other organizations and see what they did. It didn't have to be competitors. In most cases for us, it's outside of our industry. A performance appraisal process. A customer satisfaction survey process. People have done that before. You don't have to invent that. And I say steal, the proper word is called benchmarking. And identifying who does things well so that you can take those things and bring them into your organization to improve your organization. And then the last secret is just stick with it. If you don't stop, then you'll get there. Some may be faster than others, but what difference does it make? You just stay with it. That's, again, thinking about personal improvement things. You take those same thoughts and pretty basic stuff. We're at a point in our organizational growth that by most accounts, I think we're a pretty successful organization. I've been asked by employees, customers, personally, where do you think the company can go? And I've gone my long-term thinking, where at one time it was a week, 2 weeks payday. To now, I'm 5-10 years out of what personally I'm looking for. I see so much more opportunity for us now than I ever have. Because we positioned our company to a point where we can take advantage of these big opportunities that are out there. I think we were talking about this earlier at lunch. What kind of environment are we? If you are seniors, many of your seniors going to graduate, what kind of economic environment are you stepping out there into? My God, the whole world has crashed around us in the last 6 months. What's it going to be like? I'll tell you that right now, I think there's more opportunity, at least there is for us, in a recession depression situation than there is in the good times. Because our organization is prepared and we're positioned to when these opportunities come along, whether one of our competitors goes broke, becomes available for acquisition, a new customer opens up. We're in a position to be able to take advantage of those where many of our competitors are not. So my advice to you on the individual level is there may be more opportunity out there than you think. Those things, you need to be flexible and adaptable and prepared, but I think the next 5 years are going to be pretty exciting times. Yeah, there's going to be some pain out there, but I'm kind of excited about it. And organizationally, We're a $36 million company right now. This isn't really part of my normal talk, but we were comfortably making enough money. I'm not driven by money. I have enough money that I'm satisfied with that. So I don't have these aspirations of hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, that's not what drives me. I want a high-performing organization that will be my retirement plan, until I die. So you could say we're pretty comfortable. Last week, we made a decision, a management strategic decision that is going to turn our company upside down. I mean, we are, I won't call betting the farm on a new technology that we're investing in, but it's close to betting the farm. It's close to it. If it totally fails, I can survive, but it'll be a major setback. Now, I don't do those things lightly. I'm a risk taker by nature. I think starting in business, anybody starting a business, is probably has some elements of being a risk taker as a personality trait. I'm a little bit of that. But my tolerance level for risk as I've grown and gotten older has gone down dramatically. And we're making the biggest bet we've ever made as a company. But we've done it based on a systematic evaluation of the market, of the competition, of the business environment, and we think this is a unique opportunity for us. It's a game changer for us. I wouldn't have made a decision like that 5 years ago because I wouldn't have had enough information or had enough support. This literally came out of our strategic planning process. And to me, that's all about thinking about the future and sustainability of the organization. For us, we enjoy what we've gained as a result of it, but we're really going to use this as the vehicle for driving our future success and growth and sustainability over the long term. Okay, now I can keep talking probably and digress and talk about different things, but that's kind of the end of the formal presentation. I'm not sure what the time situation we're in here is, but do we have time for questions? If there
I
are,
think we're right at the 3 o'clock, so I think what we'll do is take questions down to the reception.
okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
I'm Lynn Farowski. I'm the director of the Monfort Executive Professor Program, and Terry May's presentation today has been excellence in execution, talking about MESA Products. He had indicated that MESA Products may not have been the poster child of Baldrige excellence, but certainly Terry May is, and he's demonstrated that today. As part of the Executive Professor Program, we started him this morning at 7 this morning. He gave a presentation to about 110 business leaders up at the University Center, talking about the Baldrige process and excellence. He consulted with with the directors of the College of Business and with the dean. He taught Dr. John Latham's class. He consulted with the management faculty and staff, and now he's addressing you as well. Part of the Executive Professor Program is to give you the opportunity to have the exposure with executives such as Terry. On March 6th, in 2 weeks, we'll have an alumnus from College of Business, Scott Sharman, who is the Chief Financial Officer for Western Union, will be coming in and speaking here 2 weeks from today as well. And then on April 6th, we'll have a full-day symposium or conference on sustainability. Michael Potts from Rocky Mountain Institute will have the Senior Vice President of PricewaterhouseCoopers. Hopefully we'll even have the governor come in and speak as well. It will be a full-day conference on sustainability. We'll be up at the University Center all day, including lunch, for free for students. We hope to bring in about 350 business people and the opportunity for you to be able to meet those students as well. And Terry fits well within that mold as well. We'd like to present him with a plaque in recognition of him as being a visiting Monfort Executive Professor. He can add the professor to his name as well as a result of it.
I always wanted to do that.
We've got a little stand, so you don't have to worry about holding the glass. Well, you've got a reception downstairs. There's a nacho bar and refreshments downstairs in the student lounge. We encourage you to come down, and an opportunity to spend the next 45 minutes or an hour one-on-one talking to Terry about some of the aspects of his presentation. On behalf of the Monfort College of Business, Monfort Executive Professor Program, I'd like to thank Terry May.
All right, thank you very much, and I'll see you downstairs.